It seems like the basic research, certainly Europe and Asia have become strong. Europe has always been strong. The U.S. no longer has that dominant lead in number of patents. I can remember in the 70s, 80s, we used to say that 90% of the scientists who've ever lived were alive today. I imagine that number's dropped now because there's so many more scientists that we've had over the last decades or so. But the distribution on those is global now, much more global.
Yeah.
So we certainly can't remain preeminent in all those things forever. And we're going to have to play with others.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah, it isn't. That's an interesting way to put it, too, because I saw a number not that long ago that said, I believe it's China is graduating more engineering graduates than we're graduating college graduates. Although I've heard engineers say, well, their engineering education isn't necessarily up to the standard that we have here, and that may or may not be true. And so it is true. It's inevitable that as the rest of the world catches up, especially in education and in graduate education, that a certain amount of technology leadership is going to distribute itself around the world. And there's no way around that, and so it's a matter of playing well with everybody else. Still in all, we have the best environment for entrepreneurs, the best environment for innovation if we encourage that. And so hoping that we continue to encourage innovation and do what we can to maintain a thought leadership position, if not a sort of an overall economic leadership.
Yeah, I think in design and applications of technologies and inventing new ways to do it, certainly the iPod and the iPhone was existing technology that was just applied and implemented in a very effective way.
Yeah.
And because we have the markets and the free market system and the entrepreneur base here still, and people can get rich applying technology, I think will be attractive. It's always better to do the applications where close to where the problem's being solved.
Yeah.
So I think the very strength of our market and the fluidity and the entrepreneurism here will give us a lead for a while. But those things are transitory.
Yeah. I just read a study of attitudes of millennial generation young people from around the world. PricewaterhouseCoopers did a survey of 5,000 people, and they were from all around the world. They're all kids in this millennial generation, and the vast majority of them expect China, India, and others to sort of assume technology economic leadership by 2030 or so. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily inevitable, and it isn't a matter of win-lose, perhaps. It's a matter of a whole lot of people who are very smart generating a whole lot of new ideas, which actually makes me fairly optimistic about the future, that if we could do all of this in a cooperative enough way, in a way that works for people in the world, we actually could generate an awful lot of great economic activity in the next 30 years.
And doing commerce and exchanging ideas and having the students travel back and forth actually reduces the chance of war. You tend not want to go to war with your customers.
Yeah.
There's been some investment recently in high-speed rail, and I know California's got it, and there was $8 billion the Obama administration is investing in. What are your thoughts on the high-speed rail for the U.S.? We know it's working in Japan, it's worked in China's invested a lot, and the Europeans use it successfully. Will that work here?
Well, the answer is yes, it would work here. The challenge is, given the level of our infrastructure development, the cost of acquiring land or retrofitting old rail beds and so on, the cost is higher here than places which developed it some years ago. But the cost is always high for any big project, and I think it's a great idea for regional transportation. I don't know about cross-country transportation. When you're talking 3,000 miles, that's a whole other story. But if you take the upper Midwest and you look at tying the key cities there together, you look at the Southeast and you tie key cities there together, and then you look perhaps at the Western Corridor, which I know is what people look at, and then maybe over to Las Vegas and Arizona, you can come up with some logical kinds of places where it would be good, and hopefully then you can come up with some economic models where it would work. I did speak at a conference, interestingly enough, sponsored by the Russian Railroad a year and a half ago, and the kind of the vice head of the French high-speed railroad system was there, and we just happened to be talking to each other in the airport as we were all leaving, and he was asking about high-speed rail in the U.S., and I said, well, you guys better be ready, because about 2015 we'll start building high-speed rail in a few places in the U.S., and I think we will. The challenge, of course, is just the rights-of-way. After that, it's actually pretty simple. If you could solve rights-of-way issue here, it would be a good thing. One last thought. I saw a talk by a vice president from the Brookings Institute he gave just a week ago, in which he proposed a national infrastructure bank, a public-private partnership to set up a national infrastructure bank that would be able to provide sufficient funds to do these very large infrastructure kinds of projects. And apparently there's a European model for that, and I think that is only something I know as much about as what I just said, but it sounds kind of intriguing. If financing is the problem, maybe there are some clever financing tools that could help us get over that hurdle.
Yeah, I just wonder, the economics haven't been very good on any of these. We don't do trains very well in this country. And I think some of it's the fact that we're spread out. It works for cargo, less for passenger.
Yeah.
And we have such good airplane travel, and we're so dependent on cars. And I think culturally, in the way the cities and suburbs and rural are laid out, that the trains will work in maybe some of those corridors, but not. It's going to be just one part of the solution, not a major part.
Yeah, it's I'm from Seattle, you're from Portland, or the Portland area, and so that route works pretty well. I'm sure a San Francisco to LA route, and LA to Las Vegas route, a Las Vegas to Phoenix route, a route in Florida. Obviously, the Acela trains in the Northeast work pretty well, and they're, by our standards, pretty high speed. They go 120 miles an hour. And I think all of those work pretty well financially. So if you can get them up to a couple hundred miles an hour, or true high-speed train speeds, they would probably work. But the idea of running super high-speed trains from here to Chicago and from Chicago to New York, and I don't know. That's our longer.
Anyway, I think with all the new scientists and engineers in the world, we've got a lot of people working on these problems, and I think we'll have a good selection of technology to apply to solving the problems. Yeah. And I have good faith that we'll be able to do that.
Yeah, I do too. It's a technology problem. In my speech, I'm going to talk a little bit about the value shift that has to happen. But that value shift is already happening as people kind of reconsider how kind of thoughtlessly we've used so many resources and energy and so on, and people, everywhere, people are thinking about how can we do this in a more sustainable way, a way that's going to work better for the long term, and that whole value shift actually is underway as well. And so you put technology, you put sort of reconsidered values together, and you come out with a better system on the other end.
Great, Glenn. Appreciate you taking some time this morning. We're looking forward to your talk.
Thank you.